Hi guys and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, I'll be teaching us how to make this lovely layered skirt. Okay, so you can use Ankara fabric to make these skirts, and anyone, or let me say any size, can rock this skirt. And secondly, we don't need any serious pattern drafting to do this. So let's get started. Now this is my Ankara fabric here. Okay, so I have folded my fabric into two. You can see it there. It's on fold, and I'm marking on the wrong side of the fabric, and this is the edge of my fold. Okay, so the length of the skirt I'm working with is 23 inches. I'll remove 2 inches for band, and I'll be left with 21 inches. So I will mark 21 inches from that line I drew there. Then I'll add half inch seam allowance to the hemline. Okay, now we are drafting the main skirt itself. Now this line is my waistline. I'm going to mark quarter of the waist circumference measurement on this line, and it's an A-line skirt, right? So we don't need to add that. Okay, so I'm just folding my tape into two and into two again, so that will give me quarter of the waist circumference measurement. So if your waist is 30, quarter will be 7.5. So you just mark that. There is no dot, okay, and 1 inch for side seam allowance. Then coming to the hip line, sorry, the hemline of the skirt, you mark quarter of the hip circumference first. Then you can add at least 3 inches or more because it's an A-line skirt. Okay, but definitely not too much. Okay, so you can walk around 3 or 4. What I'm saying is, after you mark quarter of your hip, you add either 3 or 4 inches to that measurement. Okay, so I think I'll be doing 4 inch. Okay, then 1 inch for side seam allowance. Then I will use my long ruler to link this to this point there. Okay, so we're trying to get the base for our skirt. Okay, so I'll just roll this down. So we're drafting the front of the skirt. Then I'll come down by 1 inch from the waistline, and then I'll slant the waistline like so. Okay, then I'll add my half inch for sewing allowance, or seam allowance rather. Now my front is ready, so I'll just cut out. Then I'll use the front to cut out the back. Okay, so I'll just cut out like this, because looking at the skirt, it's not a circle, and if you are to cut a quarter circle, you will not be able to manage your fabric properly. Okay, so this is my front. Now I'll fold my fabric into two again, and we'll be cutting out the back pattern. Now the difference between the front and back is just zipper allowance. Alright guys, so I'm just folding the other end of my fabric, and I will mark 1 inch for zipper allowance. So this is 1 inch here, and I'm marking 1 inch at the upper part there. Then I'll use my long ruler to draw my zipper allowance. Okay, so all I'll do now is I'll just place the skirts on the fabric I folded, and I'll place it just after the zipper allowance on that line. Okay, then I'll use this front to cut the back. Now mind you, the waistline of the back is not slanted, so I'll maintain the initial waistline. I will not slant the back, so I'll just trim out this excess, and then I will cut all the way down. So you can see, and this is my zipper allowance. Now I will cut open the back. Yeah, so my skirt is ready. Now the next step is for me to go and join the front and back together at the side. So I want to open up my front, which is on fold. I'll open it up and then I will place my back pattern on it. Okay, side seam to side seam, and do not forget you're sewing right side together with right side. So after placing it like so, I'll just go and sew with 1 inch seam allowance, and when I finish sewing, I'm going to give it a very good press. So just go ahead and sew now, and then I'll show the outcome. So after sewing, this is how my skirt looks like. This is after sewing and pressing, and my zip allowance is still very much there. Okay, so the next step now before us to create the ruffles or the peplum. So your peplum can be rectangular or circles, but we're going to be making rectangular peplum. So I'm marking 6 inches away from the waistline, using the back as my guide. Okay, so now I'll be cutting out rectangular pieces. Okay, so the length of the piece is about 7 inches long. Okay, yeah, it's about 7 inches long, and then the width, just make it as long as possible. Okay, so and then you weave the one part of the piece. Okay, so now I'm going to okay, so now I'm going to attach this to the waistline of the skirt. Okay, and then we're going to be making tiny pleats. So I'm going to pin this to the waistline. Okay, so you just pin it to the waistline, and then you start making tiny pleats. The pleats are not very obvious. Okay, so I'll pin the zipper part first here, and then I'll start to make pleats this way all the way around. Okay, so just very tiny pleats, shouldn't be more than half or 1 inch. So make sure you work with your pins so that you don't make a mistake. Alright, so I've pinned the first layer to the waistline. Okay, so next thing now is to mark the position of the second peplum. Okay, so make sure the second peplum starts at least 2 inches, before the hemline of the first one. So I'll be marking 4 inch from the waistline. Okay, I'll be marking 4 inches round. So if you see that 4 inch now, it's still very much inside. The first peplum will cover it up. Okay, so now this is the second peplum, and then this time around you're going to sew the peplum upside down, and then you flip it to the right side. Okay, so this is it. You can either sew it directly by folding the pleats, or you make the pleats upside down like this. Then when you're done, you flip it over like that. Okay, so it depends on what you want. Okay, but I think the one for the upside down method is neater, and it conceals the sewing. So I'm going to pin it round, make my pleats, and go ahead to sew it. So I have fixed the second layer. Okay, so I'll just repeat the same process for the third layer. I will mark 4 inches away from the beginning of the second layer, but I'll make sure I mark it round the skirt. Okay, so that way, it's even. So I'll place it here. Make sure it's not too close to the hemline of the second one. Make sure you move it inward a bit. So I'll just repeat the same process, like I said, and most likely I'll be adding another layer just to make it very full. All right, so I have added the third layer. You see that? So you can see that the third peplum is still very far away from the hemline. So I'll just add one more layer. Okay, so it's still the same process. And make sure that the third layer is not too close to the hemline. So you have to move it up like very well. You see that? Then by the time you weave the hemline of the skirt, it will just be very even, right? Okay, so I've added the last peplum. Okay, so like I said, you have to weave the edges of each of this peplum and the hemline too. Now at this point, we're going to be adding our band. So to do that, you measure the waistline on the skirts and you cut out a rectangular band. So the width of the band is 2.5 inches. Half inch will be going for hem and for attaching to the skirt. And then the length is the waistline of the skirt plus 2 inches for zipper. That's 1 inch on both sides of the skirt. So I'll attach the band and I'll place this on the mannequin for us to see. So at this point, this is how far I've gone. I'm yet to add my zipper because I've not, weaved the edges of the peplum, but at least we can see how it has come out really nice and neat. So I hope we learned something from this tutorial. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and share. You can also leave your comments. And for the peplum, if you have enough fabric, you might not do rectangular peplum. You can do probably a full circle or a half circle. So that one gives you more frills and folds. Okay, so yeah, that will be all for this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.